do what I want when I want to do it. I can do what I need when I need to get through it. When I need someone else, can't be too proud for help, but gotta look after myself. Sometimes it can get lonely, never living in the moment. When the sun is shining, hope that I'm reminded, like how the clouds keep changing. I'm always steady rearranging, going back to the basics of what a good day is. What a good day is. And that's exactly what the day is. But it's exactly what you make it. So please don't go wasting. And I'll do the same, even if it's raining. How could I complain? And my feels got me feeling some type of way. You always free to take a break. Hope you feel what I felt. You gotta look after yourself. Sometimes it can get lonely, never living in the moment. When the sun is shining, hope that I'm reminded, like how the clouds keep changing. I'm always steady rearranging, going back to the basics of what a good day is. Of what a good day is. What a good day is.
Man, it is a great day. Y'all know what to do. Drop a 1 in the chat if you can hear me. Drop a 1 in the chat if you can see me. Happy Friday, everybody. We about to get into it. Wow. Hopefully y'all are doing well. Shout out to everybody who's in the building. It's good to see y'all. All right, we got some 1s in the chat. Let me see how we looking up in here though. Oh man, I clicked the wrong thing. Okay, we should be good. Here we go. All right. Shout out to everybody who's in the building. Welcome y'all. Welcome back to another YouTube live stream and another episode of the Music Morning Show. I'm your host ClassE Beats of ClassEbeats.com. Today we're going to get into a little bit of a rewind, give y'all some nostalgia today. We're going to go back in time and see if we can figure out what these closing arguments are going to look like coming up next week. But before I get into that, I got to say what's up to the people, man. Shout out to everybody who's in the building. Of course, y'all know the awesome, amazing Amy is in here. Always showing love, showing support. Amy, I appreciate you. We got JB, Alabama Gigi, Valencia, Corinne, A-Fitz, Michi, Monterisa, Leslie. We got Brian in here. Shout out to Brian. K-Tribe is in the building. Christina, Athena, D. Rebecca's in here. Charlotte, shout out to you. Shawnee's in the building. Sheila. Dimples Dawson is in here as well. Anton, my guy. We've got Michelle. Who else is in here? Jay Buckmaster's in the building. Carmaine, Nisha, Minnie Perkins. Oh, shout out to Minnie Perkins. What's up now? Azure, Dennis. Shout out to Dennis. Linfinity, Chelsea, Cynthia, Sheila, Captain Whackbeard. That's how I be feeling sometimes. Semper's up here. Focus on you. Good to see y'all. I'm going to say good morning to a couple of you as we go throughout the show. Thank y'all for being here. If you could do me one huge favor, please make sure you like the video on your way in. Not only is it free, not only does it help the channel continue to grow, but it lets the YouTube algorithm know that y'all are enjoying the show, and it shares the video and the channel with more people. By the way, because of y'all's effort, because of the major support, we hit 80,000 subscribers this week. Man, I appreciate and thank y'all so much for the support. We're going to continue to grow, continue to keep going. And as y'all know, we take no days off. No days off. We're going to keep it moving. So y'all stick around. Thank you to everybody who's subscribed and is supporting the content. That's amazing, man. All right, here we go. So what are we going to talk about today? As I mentioned, we got a couple things going on. The first thing I want to do is give another shout out to Amy. So last was it last week? No, it was actually earlier this week. Max Sharp was doing a cross-examination of Detective Viverito. Well, let's put some respect on her name. Her actual title is Detective Official Super Stalker Instagram Specialist Investigator Detective Viverito. Big Burrito, as we call her over here. And Max Sharp was doing cross-examination with Detective Investigator Viverito. And during that cross-examination, the live feed for Law and Crime cut out. We're having trouble finding the video, couldn't locate it, couldn't figure out where to find it. And I've got to give a big shout out to Amy. She actually found and was able to clip the video. Y'all give it up for Amy in the chat. Putting in work. So what we're going to do is we're going to actually go backwards and review that lost footage. I'm not going to play the whole thing because, as I always do, I want you guys to go and support the creators that not only help feed what we're doing here on the channel, but are just putting out great content. And as you know, Amy just recently started her YouTube channel and is going crazy. She's already at 5,000 plus subscribers. So we're going to play this video. I'll play like the first 8 minutes or so of it, and then you can go watch and look at the full video over on her channel, which is linked in the description. And I'll drop the video, the link to this video in the description for y'all as well. All right, so let's go ahead and get into it. Again, if y'all could, make sure you like the video on your way in. And big shout out to Amy, man, for getting up there. How many subscribers she got? 5,600? Sheesh. All right, so let's go ahead and get into this and see what Max had to say during the rest of cross-examination. So the part of the video where it cut out during the Law and Crime live stream was right as he was about to ask her about the third car in the Chamel Drinks shooting. As we know, it was really weird, everything that happened during this video that they received from FedEx. And the video shows 3 cars pulling up to the stoplight. Allegedly, Shannon was in one of them. We're not really arguing that part. And then the other 2 cars pull off, and you see Chamel Drinks' car and actually sits there. Another car pulls up behind it. We're calling it the third car. It sits somewhat behind the other Chamel Drinks' vehicle. He hits the brake lights, lets off the brake lights, hits him again, and then you see the third car pull off. So that's where we were in the questioning of Big Burrito. Let's see what she has to say about that.
Analyst Alexander Coven about the results that he found.
I have not.
And you are aware that warrants were taken out certainly before any of those GSR results were in, correct?
Correct.
Let's talk about tint. You've been preparing with the state. You know that the state has said that Mr. Stillwell had tint applied to his windows of that white Audi upon renting it, correct?
Correct.
In violation of the rental agreement, I may add.
Correct.
Okay. And this tint was applied on Flat Shoals Road, according to the district attorneys, at about 6:30 p.m.?
According to them, yes.
Okay. You were able to observe the white Audi on March 16th?
I did not walk. Wasn't that interested in it at that point, so I did not walk. It was very, very dark.
Have you seen the pictures that Miss Antoinette Green took of the white Audi after it was recovered when Mr. Stillwell was arrested?
I have.
Did you see any damage to the tint, specifically the front driver passenger tint on that car?
I did not.
Okay. Mr. Kokomo, if you could rewind again. No, actually, you know what? I'm sorry. Keep it here. Keep it here. Just play it. I'm sorry, Mr. Kokomo.
Good morning, y'all.
Okay. You
That's
saw
the
that
third
speed
car.
up behind Mr.
Lying.
Stillwell?
Oh, the volume's bad?
Pause
All
it.
right, hold on.
You saw
Yes.
that?
All right, here we go. We got it.
Mr. Stillwell, you're aware that he, well, you've already stated this, he was victimized in the past. Someone
Should be good
shot through the rear windows, killing Tiara Jones.
Yes.
Okay. And now, that car that sped up is next to Mr. Drinks, correct? Or approaching Mr. Drinks?
It's approaching, but it stopped short of Mr. Drinks.
Okay, Mr. Kokomo, if you could please play it. Okay. So now there's a, pause. So now there's one car next to Mr. Drinks, correct?
It's still not next to him. You could see from the angle that it looks like the front of the car. I'm sorry.
I love how she, it's so funny how she can see all that, but she can't see a muzzle flash. You can barely even see that in this video. We had to zoom in. This is
Front
crazy.
of the car is like, from what I can see, looks like the front of the car. The front wheels are still towards the back of the vehicle. It's not like exact with the car.
Okay. Mr. Kokomo, if you could please play. Pause. See that car make a U-turn?
I do.
Okay. What car was next to Mr. Drinks when that car suddenly made a U-turn?
Judging by how the lights are, that car still appears to be back a little bit, but next to it.
All right, so now you're making three-dimensional evaluations, but we can't see a muzzle flash. Off this.
A muzzle.
I did not know Max said that. Shout out to Max. I had no idea. I hadn't seen this video yet, so I didn't know he said that. He said, oh, you can make three-dimensional determinations, but you can't see a muzzle flash. That's hilarious. I swear I've not seen
Mr.
this
Sharp, I'm
video.
going to explain to you. When you're, I don't know if you're mischaracterizing it. When you go to the range, example, to fire your weapons at night, and there's a line of shooters, it's not bam, 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 lights everywhere. It's a very, very muted, if it shows. So this far away with this quality of video, I would not expect to see that.
Okay, well, let's talk
Brilliant.
about this car.
Sure.
This car makes a U-turn. Did you see, is there like a train that's crossing that would have let this person know, no, I need to find another route?
No.
Is there a officer saying, hey, turn around, you can't come this way?
No.
Is there an animal crossing the road that would have made this man do a U-turn?
No.
Who is this? Whose car is this that made the U-turn?
I don't know.
Okay. Do you know if anyone ever tried to use these license plate readers to determine whose car that is so we could figure out, talk to them about why they made that sudden U-turn?
Nope.
That would be
Never
part of
YSL
Detective
moment,
Hogan's
right?
investigation, but I do not.
Okay. Hypothetically, could that car made a sudden U-turn at that exact moment because they heard a loud bang?
Check your honor, be speculation.
She's been speculating
although
this
she's
whole
expert,
thing.
she's not expert in.
She's not an expert in
Can
anything.
allow it.
That would be problematic based on the video.
That would be problematic based on the video. So you're telling us that you know that this person did not make a turn due to a loud bang?
If you're going off the loud bang theory, may I explain?
Yes.
If Mr. Kokomo can hit play, or
What a
rewind it back
clown.
and hit play for a second. You're going to see there's a gentleman or some person walking here. They do not break stride. They do not flinch. They do not stop. They do not jump back. They continue walking towards your loud bang or your gunfire.
Well, actually, they disappear into the bushes, don't they?
It's not a bush. It's a shadow. And I went out there.
There's not trees right there? I've been out there too, Miss.
Okay, I've been out there too, so like walking through, but they don't break stride. They don't jump. They don't run back. They don't run.
It's amazing, though. She deflected and she never answered the question about the actual car. We're asking about the car. We're not asking about the person next to him. Super investigator, stalker, Instagram specialist, Big Burrito.
From the gunfire. So if it was gunfire enough to make a car stop, pull a U-turn in the middle of the road, that would certainly be, and using your theory, make a person get taken aback a little bit and run away.
So who's that person?
I went out there and canvassed. That's an area where it's there's a large homeless population. It's very transient, and there's also a Greyhound bus station right there.
So you
It's a
didn't talk to
homeless
this
person.
person?
I did not.
You're saying that they didn't break stride and all that. You've never talked to that person. You've never identified that person.
Could not. I tried.
Okay, but again, I'm going to ask you, and if your answer is really no, then that's fine. You're telling us, you're
She's
telling
not
the
gonna say.
jury that you, as the determiner of facts, have determined that that person did not make a turn because of a loud bang.
Consistent with the person walking that would be outside of a vehicle that had no reaction at all. That's what that would lead me to believe. And I didn't charge this case, so I'm not the determiner of facts.
All right, let's talk about something else.
Then why
while
are you
we're-
here,
while we're
lady?
in the video. Mr. Kokomo, if you could just play. I want you to pause for a second, Mr. Kokomo. I want you to pay real close attention to Mr. Drinks' car,
Okay.
his brake lights.
Ooh, this is where it gets good.
Okay, you see the other car pull up a little bit more,
Correct?
and you see the brake light go once, on and off.
Correct?
Okay.
And we know why he talked about that too. Because as we mentioned before, the medical examiner said where he was shot, and if he were shot by Shannon, like Detective Hogan and I don't know, Big Burrito would like us to believe, that he would not have been able to put his foot on the brake, release the brake, and put his foot on the brake again. It's physically impossible. So great point again from Max. Absolutely killing it. And I'm so glad, pun intended. And I'm so glad he mentioned this to her. There's a good bit of this video left, but as I mentioned, I want to give credit to the creator. And of course, in this specific instance, give credit to Amy. So the link to the full version of this video is going to be in the description and also in the description of this video. Y'all make sure you go over, subscribe to Amy's channel, show her some love, watch this full video because Max has a lot more that he wants to get into here with Big Burrito. Shout out to everybody who's in the building too. I'm gonna read some super chats and then we're gonna get into some more comments from Max, but it might not be what you think. We'll see here in a second. Shout out to Floyd dropping the 20 bomb. Thank you, Floyd. It says, just because of how complicated the verdict form will be, do you think there is any chance of a verdict before Thanksgiving? I asked this in the chat yesterday, and the majority of people surprisingly said yes. I personally do not believe so. And since we've got 2,000 people in here, that is actually a great question we can ask again, Floyd. So I'm going to ask y'all in the chat. Will there be a verdict? Or let's ask this differently. Will the jury, here we go, reach a verdict before? All right. The question is in the chat for y'all. You can vote and let me know, let Floyd know what y'all think. Is there going to be a verdict before Thanksgiving? I don't think there is. This jury seems like they're really taking this seriously and don't just want to write it off because they've had several chances to get out of this thing and they didn't take it. Now, we know what juror 56 is going to say, but everybody else, I don't know. And again, I've served on the grand jury. I've seen how some of these jurors can get. You've always got those one or two that are very extra vigilant when it comes to making sure they get the verdict the right way. So it'll be interesting to see what happens there. Thank you again for the super chat, Floyd. I appreciate it. Also, we've got my guy D-Mo Yo in here with the 5 bomb. He says, good morning, CEB gang. Remember, no face, no case. You know what time it is. Samson's in here. Shout out to Samson. And Ray over there says 56 said the state sucks.
These niggas lacking.
Absolutely. All right, what we're going to get into next, this is going to be a little bit of a rewind. As y'all know, closing arguments are coming up this Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, depending on how things go. We'll see. But I wanted to go back to Max Shart's opening statements in this YSL trial and see if that'll give us kind of an idea of not only how he's going to conduct himself in front of the jury, but the message that he's going to want to get across to them. So let's go ahead and get into it. I have not reviewed this full video yet either, so it's going to be interesting to see the difference between Max, over a year ago, and Max now. Let's check it out.
My name is Max Sharp, and along with my co-counsel, the gentleman with the white hair back there, his name is David Botts. And together we have the honor and privilege of representing Shannon Stillwell.
Man, look at everybody in there.
Innocent man. He's been accused of a murder of Donovan Thomas in 2015. He is not guilty. He's been accused of a murder of Jamal Drinks in 2022. He is not guilty. He has been accused of conspiring to violate the Georgia State RICO law. He is not guilty.
Look at Judge Glanville up there.
Now, I am going to deliver an opening statement that will preview what I believe the evidence will show in this case and the evidence that will come in trial. But before I even start previewing what I believe the evidence will be, I want to discuss with you some preliminary matters regarding this case. The first preliminary matter that I wish to discuss is my client's name. Okay? On the indictment, you will see, when you look at the indictment, that my client is listed as Shannon Stillwell, also known as Shannon Jackson. Okay, and there's a simple explanation for that. You will learn that his mother was a Stillwell, but he was raised by his paternal grandmother, Betty Jackson. So at times, he's been a Stillwell, at times he's been a Jackson. He's indicted as Shannon Stillwell. I know him as Shannon Stillwell, but throughout this trial, some people may say Shannon Jackson, some people may say Shannon Stillwell. I may slip up and say Shannon Jackson. But we're talking about the same person, Shannon Stillwell. Second preliminary matter. It has not been lost on me that my client, it's not lost on any of us, that my client is charged with 2 murders in this case. He's charged in 2015, and the evidence will show that he was wrongfully accused. And that case never went to court. He was accused in 2022, wrongfully, based largely on assumptions made about the 2015 case. We plead absolutely not guilty. With our back straight and our eyes wide open, we plead not guilty to those charges. And finally, ladies and gentlemen, as far as preliminary matters, as you probably have realized through jury selection and the fact that we have some visitors from the press here today and different things about this case, this is somewhat of a unique case. It's drawn some attention.
Yeah,
but the thing I want to stress is that this case is no different than any other case in the state of Georgia or the United States of America as far as criminal cases go. And it has the same ground rules as any other case tried in this great union. The ground rules of this case are that the defendant, Shannon Stillwell, and all the other defendants are presumed innocent. The state bears the burden of proving their case against all the accused individually. And the state's burden of proof is the highest burden in our system, beyond a reasonable doubt. Beyond a reasonable doubt. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, the state started talking in their opening about about colors. About colors and hand signs and different markers and gang activity and all the rest. And I anticipate that the state will attempt to bring in colors and their belief about what colors mean in this case. Throughout this case, I'm going to ask you to focus on a couple colors as well. just to keep in mind as you hear the evidence. Okay, the first color is dollar bill green. Dollar bill green, as you may guess, is the exact shade of green that the U.S. government uses when printing U.S. currency. And the evidence in this case will show that many of these young men grew up without dollar bill green. The evidence will show, and you'll learn about different areas of Atlanta, Capitol Homes, Jonesboro South,
Cleveland Avenue.
places that have since
Believe
been
me.
revitalized in some ways, but back 15 years ago were not nice places. Places of despair, lack of opportunity, poverty, lack of positive role models. You'll hear about Shannon and his upbringing. You'll hear that he grew up in the Forest Cove Apartments, which has since been condemned. And he was raised by his paternal grandmother, Betty Jackson. He couldn't live with his mother, who had succumbed to drug addiction.
Shout out to
And it was
Betty.
his paternal grandmother, Betty Jackson, who raised him. And she raised him in the Forest Cove Apartments, and you'll hear that she loved him, poured love into him, called him her sweet thing, and he called her mom because she was mom. You'll hear that despite
Rest in
the
peace.
love and guidance that Miss Jackson tried to pour into Mr. Stillwell, at the age of 14, without other people providing him guidance, he dropped out of school. And he decided that he wanted to be a rapper. You'll learn about the rap industry in this case. And you'll learn, and you probably already know this, but becoming a rapper is not the same as signing up for a job at Home Depot, where you work for 2 weeks and you get your first paycheck. When you're chasing superstardom in the rap game, those paychecks might not come for a long time. And sadly, they may not come at all. It might be a dead end to nowhere. You'll learn about the vast numbers of young men with the same dream as Shannon and how the supply of potential rappers greatly exceeds the demand for superstar rappers. How it's really a bad occupation to try to get into when it really comes down to it. But Shannon was 14. And you'll hear how he tried to hone his skills and tried to make it in the rap game. But you'll hear that Shannon, like many other young men chasing this same dream, weren't making any money. And bills have to be paid. And kids have to eat. And rent becomes due. And in this case,
True.
and we're not going to hide from it, the chase of dollar bill green turned into a different shade of green for Shannon and many others. That type of green, that shade of green is called bud green, which is actually a color. You can paint your house bud green. But in this case, of course, bud green stands for marijuana. And you'll hear how Shannon, trying to make it in rap, sold marijuana. The state has alleged in their overt acts, okay? These are acts that they claim prove that there's some RICO conspiracy afoot. You'll hear that on August 23rd, 2013, Shannon was charged with possession of marijuana with intent to distribute, approximately 1 ounce, over 10 years ago. And you'll hear that he pled guilty and did his time. You'll hear that in 2015, in July of 2015, he was charged with possession of marijuana with intent in possession of a firearm. And you'll hear he pled guilty, took responsibility, did his time. You'll hear that in September 25th of 2019, he was arrested and charged with possession of a firearm. And he took responsibility and he did his time. We're not hiding from the fact that Shannon Stillwell has sold drugs. We're not hiding from the fact that he's been found in possession of marijuana. We're not hiding from the fact that he's been found in possession of a firearm, which is always synonymous with selling drugs. Okay? These are his path, his past, his truth, and they were his decisions. His motivation was to make money for him, to live, to pay rent, to eat.
Not YSL.
Ladies and gentlemen, we're not hiding from the past. But the evidence will show that Shannon's decisions, starting over 10 years ago, had nothing to do with YSL or any other organization. You won't hear evidence that Shannon was selling marijuana and then calling someone from YSL saying, hey, I got some money to support the organization, or calling Jeffrey Williams and saying, hey, I got some money for you, man. No, it was for him. He was a drug dealer. He pled guilty. He did his time. Just like thousands of other people in Atlanta. This has nothing to do with YSL. Has nothing to do with the January 10th shooting of Donovan Thomas. And it
Talk
has
to him.
nothing to do with the 2022 shooting of Shamal Prince. On count one, on this indictment, the state charges Shannon Stillwell with conspiracy to violate the RICO Act. They say on or between January 24th, 2013 and the 8th day of May 2022, he and others unlawfully conspired to acquire, maintain directly and indirectly an interest in and control of United States currency and other personal property through a pattern of racketeering.
Nope,
The
can't
state in
prove
their
it.
opening said, further the interests of YSL, further their goals. They also said they endeavored to do a lot of stuff to get them a lot of stuff. Okay, it's a little bit more complicated than that. And in RICO, the actions need to be part of a racketeering organization, not a drug dealer selling drugs to put food on his own table, to afford studio time to chase his dream as a rapper.
Well said.
I'm going to ask you, at the close of evidence, to find Shannon Stillwell not guilty, count one. Okay, the other color besides dollar bill green, and I guess bud green, that I'd like to talk about is Fulton County blue. Now, Fulton County blue refers to the Fulton County Jail, 901 Rice Street, where people are taken when they're arrested for felony charges in Fulton County. And Fulton County blue refers to the jumpsuits that these individuals wear, the county-issued jumpsuits that are typically navy blue, a deep navy blue, and say Fulton County inmate on the back.
Mm-hmm.
You'll hear about the conditions of jail life and Fulton County jail life in particular, and common sense dictates some of this. You're confined to a cell, sometimes with another man sharing that small cell with you. You have no privacy. Use the bathroom in front of men, shower in front of men. You're in fear, danger.
Well, if you play
You're
any
separated
sport,
from
that's
your
not a big
family
deal.
and your loved ones. But most importantly,
The showers.
men wearing blue, Fulton County blue, they've lost control of their lives. They've lost control of their destiny. Their destiny is now in the hands of the judicial system, in the hands of prosecutors. Ladies and gentlemen, Fulton County blue is going to be a very important color in this case because the state's key witnesses in this case that they're going to call to testify, that I anticipate that they will call to testify against my client Shannon Stillwell, when they became involved in this case, they were all wearing the Fulton County blue. When Darius Zachary, Kenneth Copeland, Sammy Davis, Teron Stillwell, Spencer Wright, you'll hear them testify if they're called. You'll hear what they've said previously, perhaps. But what you should keep in mind is, when did these men say what they have to say? Did they say it when they first got the information to share? Or when they claim they first got the information to share? Or did they share it when they found themselves wearing a Fulton County blue? When they no longer had control of their destinies and they needed a favor?
Talk about Rice Street.
To insert themselves into a high-profile case that could solve all their problems. Okay. Let's talk about January 10, 2015. That's the case involving Mr. Thomas. And the evidence will show that this was a high-profile case. And the reason, this is not me talking. I anticipate the evidence will show. I anticipate the state's own witnesses, the state's own gang investigators will tell you, not me talking. I anticipate they will tell you that Donovan Thomas was a big deal, that he was a gang leader, that he was a leader of the Inglewood family Bloods in Atlanta, that he was high-ranking.
Look at Miss Love down there. Y'all
And
miss
that's
her?
what made this case a big deal on the streets.
Judge Glanville, y'all
You'll
miss
also
him?
hear that this case, the shooting of Donovan Thomas, was caught on surveillance video. Now, I'm not going to suggest that it's the highest quality surveillance video, but it was caught on surveillance video. And you'll be able to watch the surveillance video. And you'll see McDaniel Street in downtown Atlanta at about 7:20 p.m. on January 10, 2015. Remember, winter, it's cold, dark. And you'll see a car zoom down McDaniel Street towards Northside Drive, headed northwest, I believe. And you will see and you will hear testimony that Mr. Thomas was with other individuals. What they were doing, I don't know, but he was with other individuals in a parking lot in between two barbershops, one being Mr. George's barbershop and one being Mr. Bernard's barbershop. And you will hear that this car zoomed down this dark street on that January 9th, and it appears from the video that you will see that an individual starts shooting out of the sunroof in the direction of Donovan Thomas and others. And you will see that surveillance video for what it is and what it isn't. And you will also see how quickly everything occurred that night.
Yep.
A matter of seconds. Detective Thorpe is the Atlanta Police Department detective that was assigned this case in January 2015, and you'll hear that he gathered the evidence from the crime scene. There was no DNA, there was no fingerprints of value. You'll hear that there were shell casings all along the street, but you won't ever hear that these shell casings were linked to any particular gun or Shannon Stillwell or anything else. And there were no eyewitnesses on January 10, 2015 coming forward saying, yes, I was here and this is what I saw. And I saw this person do this. There was none of that. And you'll hear that this case remained unsolved. No one had been charged for 9 months and 9 days. On October 19, 2015, 9 months and 9 days after the Donovan Thomas shooting, a man named Nicholas Robinson was arrested on the streets of Atlanta and brought to Fulton County Jail for various pending charges. And you will hear evidence that Mr. Robinson decided he needed help. He didn't want to wear the Fulton County blue. You'll hear that he contacted the Atlanta Police Department and got in touch with Detective Thorpe. And Detective Thorpe came out and interviewed this Nicholas Robinson.
Thank you, Monica.
You'll hear what Nicholas Robinson said in this interview, how he gave his vantage point to Detective Thorpe, how Nicholas Robinson said that he was seated at the MARTA bus bench right across McDaniel Street from the barbershops. And you'll hear that Nicholas Robinson told Detective Thorpe that he saw it all, and he saw the people that were inside the car, and he gave names. Nicholas Robinson said, I saw Antonio Sledge. He came out of the sunroof shooting. I saw Kenneth Copeland. He was in the front passenger seat. I saw Demekion Garlington. He was the driver of this car. Quindarius Zachary, he wasn't there, but he supplied the gun to Antonio Sledge. And yes, I saw Shannon Stillwell, my client, in the back passenger side shooting a handgun. So Detective Thorpe, after taking this information from Nicholas Robinson, who just broke the case, created photo lineups. And you'll learn what a photo lineup is. It's essentially 6 photos that contain a picture of a suspect, and then 5 what we call fillers. And you'll learn about that. And Detective Thorpe showed these photo lineups. A photo lineup with Antonio Sledge, and then a photo lineup with Kenneth Copeland. Each person had their own photo lineup just to ensure that Nicholas Robinson could pick these people out of a photo lineup. And Nicholas Robinson did. And he signed his name, Nicholas Robinson, next to the picture of Antonio Sledge, and next to the picture of Kenneth Copeland, and next to the picture of Demekion Garlington, and next to the picture of my client, Shannon Stillwell. Nicholas Robinson signed his name and said, these were the people in the car. Ladies and gentlemen, why am I telling you this? Well,
most people don't.
Two small problems. First, you will see the surveillance video. You will be able to watch the surveillance video and the lighting conditions out there, and the fact that there's gunfire going every which way, and how fast the car is moving, and you will be able to judge, was it ever even believable that someone could see 4 people inside a car under those conditions? But there was a bigger problem that Detective Thorpe had.
He was wrong.
You see, you'll learn that during this interview with Nicholas Robinson, it wasn't only Detective Thorpe. There was another investigator there, an investigator Gaither. And while Detective Thorpe was talking to Nicholas Robinson, Detective Gaither was doing some investigation of her own and looking into Nicholas Robinson and who this guy was who had just been arrested. And after Nicholas Robinson picked out all these people, including my client, Detective Gaither had to tell Detective Thorpe a little secret. Detective Gaither had to tell Detective Thorpe, that guy in there who just signed those photo lineups and just helped our case, his name isn't really Nicholas Robinson. He lied to us about his name. His name is actually Spencer Wright.
Wow.
So,
Garbage.
case was solved by someone who lied about their name. So, what was Detective Thorpe's solution? Well, this is what the evidence was showing. Detective Thorpe completely overlooked the lie about the name. The improbability of a man spotting 4 different individuals in the car moving at a high rate of speed in the middle of the night. He overlooked those things. And he said to Nicholas Robinson, or he said to Spencer Wright, I've come to learn that your name is not actually Nicholas Robinson, it's Spencer Wright. Could you look at these photo lineups again, and instead of writing a fake name Nicholas Robinson, could you actually sign your real name Spencer Wright? And Spencer Wright did.
Terrible.
And what happened? Detective Thorpe, on October 19th, 2015, based on the word of Spencer Wright, the man who had just claimed to be Nicholas Robinson, Detective Thorpe took out warrants for Antonio Sledge, Demekion Garlington, Kenneth Copeland, and my client, Shannon Stillwell, based on what Spencer Wright said.
Yep.
Okay. Since October 19th of 2015, people have had an opportunity to review some things on this case. The surveillance video that you will see, it's interesting because not only does it show McDaniel Street to catch the incident, but it also shows the MARTA park bench right across from the barber shops.
Yeah, we talked about that.
Street.
Remember Mr. Sprinkle talking about the cat?
And know who's in the barber? Know who's in the park bench? The bus, MARTA bench, across from the barber shop? No one. It was all fabricated. It was all made up. It was all a lie. We've been able to review Spencer Wright's jail phone calls to associates made around that time. All but admitting, I'm lying. I need to get out of here. I'm inserting myself into a case so I can get favorable treatment, so that others get arrested. The state has since dismissed the charges against Antonio Sledge, Kenneth Copeland, and Demekion Garlington. They continue to push forward against Shannon Stillwell. Why is Spencer Wright so important? Why have I spent so much time talking about someone who clearly lied, who clearly wasn't there, who clearly made things up?
Yep. Just like Lil Woody.
Well, Spencer Wright
Lil Woody.
gives us the blueprint. He tells us what to look out for. What was Spencer Wright wearing when he fabricated his story? Fulton County blue. What did he want? What was he in search of when he fabricated his story? Control of his destiny. He didn't want it to be left in the judicial system. He wanted to use something to get a deal. He wanted to take back control. That's what men in blue do. Okay. In this case, I anticipate the state will bring 4 witnesses forward. All 4 have certain things in common, as I stated. When they supposedly came upon information that was relevant, never shared it with law enforcement. But once they were wearing blue and they needed something, that's when they came up with their stories. I anticipate the state will call Cordelia Zachary, ironically, one of the people accused by Spencer Wright. You'll learn that he claims he knew information from January 10, 2015. January, February, March, April, May, never shared this information with anyone. But lo and behold, you'll hear he found himself in custody for serious charges on August 5th of 2015. Then all of a sudden he had a story to tell. You'll hear he gave a second statement to law enforcement approximately a year later, where he was in a room with the gang investigators, with prosecutors, including the prosecutors that were handling his case and had control over his destiny, his future, and his attorney. And you'll hear that he gave a second statement and was looking for a deal. Cordelia Zachary is no longer wearing blue. Cordelia Zachary is not charged in this case. He got his deal. You'll hear about Kenneth Copeland. Again, someone ironically accused by Spencer Wright. You'll hear that Kenneth Copeland hates jail more than anything. The problem is, for someone that hates jail more than anything, he does a horrible job of avoiding it. And you'll hear that throughout this investigation, he's repeatedly arrested by Atlanta Police Department and other jurisdictions. And you'll hear 2 of those arrests were on June 10th of 2015 for guns, found in possession of guns. October 28, 2021, guns, found in possession of guns. And he makes it very clear about what he thinks about wearing the blue. But the interesting thing about him is, as you will hear, is every time he's arrested, law enforcement runs out to talk to him. And he goes through the same song and dance about how he'll do anything. Just don't, please don't make me wear that blue. Kenneth Copeland is no longer wearing blue. And he's not charged in this case. I anticipate you may hear from a man named Sammy Davis, who claims he was at the scene on January 10, 2015. January through December 2015, never once went to law enforcement. 2016, never once went to law enforcement. But then in March 17, 2017, when he's in jail, wearing blue, Law enforcement comes out and talks to him. You'll hear his story. His story about how 2 cars were driving down McDaniel Street, and the first car sent a signal to the second car saying Donovan Thomas is just leaving the barber shop, as a signal like it's time to shoot. And how the second car pulled up in front of the barber shop and stopped in the middle of the street. Just stopped. And then people started shooting at Donovan Thomas. You'll hear Sammy Davis' story. You'll also see the video. You'll see that there's no first car, second car. You'll see that there's no signal. You'll see that Donovan Thomas wasn't just leaving the barbershop, that he had, in fact, like the state had already stated, been hanging out with friends in that parking lot for quite some time prior to the shooting. And most importantly, you'll hear, or you'll see on the video, that Sammy Davis's claims that his car stopped are 100% wrong. The car never stops. The car drives on by.
We saw that too.
Bullets flying everywhere. You'll be able to listen to Sammy Davis's story and compare it to the surveillance video and figure out how much value you should give his story. And finally, I anticipate you may hear from a man named Tremont Stillwell. A man who curiously claims he's my client's uncle. Not sure what that's about. You'll hear that he claimed to come across important information in January of 2015. And he claimed he came across this important information while talking to someone with his wife, Vanetta Guffey, right there. You'll hear throughout all of 2015, never said a word to law enforcement. Wasn't until March 22nd, 2016. Guess what color Tremont Stillwell was wearing at that time? You got it. But he was in jail for serious charges, and he needed help. He needed help from law enforcement to start to reclaim his destiny, control over his life, to escape the monotony and the filth of the Fulton County Jail. And you'll hear that he claimed to have information. You'll hear that the state, to their credit, went to try to corroborate whatever Tremont Stillwell was talking about and talked to his wife, who is now deceased. Her name is Vanetta Guffey. She is now deceased. But you'll hear that she was interviewed on May 11th of 2016 when she was still alive. And you'll hear what she had to say about Tremont Stillwell's claims. That what he's saying happened, never happened, A, and that Tremont Stillwell is a effing liar.
Ooh.
Those are the state's witnesses in this case. Those are the men in blue. Count 2 of this indictment is the count that charges my client, Shannon Stillwell, along with a whole new group of individuals with the murder of Donovan Thomas. There'll be no forensic evidence, there'll be no ballistic evidence. There'll be no eyewitnesses that presented themselves at the scene to say, I saw this occur. The surveillance video will not give insight as to whether Shannon Stillwell was there or not. The state case will rest entirely on the word of men in blue. When the evidence is
Not to mention social media posts, guys who took immunity deals, garbage.
done in trials done in this case, I'm going to ask that you return a verdict of not guilty to count 2, murder. Okay. Hold on one second, Shane. Now, I would like to preview a little bit about my client's life after the Donovan Thomas murder. Remember, on October 19th, 2015, the Atlanta Police Department, Detective Thornton, and the news broadcast to the world, and more specifically to the streets, and more specifically to the Inglewood family blood gang that Donovan Thomas was the head of, that my client was responsible. Based on the word of Spencer Wright, based on the word of someone that even the state is saying lied. First they said wasn't completely accurate. No, it was a lie. Based on that, they broadcast to everyone that my client was responsible. And there has been repercussions. You'll hear in 2015, people pulled up to my client as he stood outside his store, shot a gun at his head, and grazed his forehead. Thankfully, he's still with us. You'll hear that later in 2015, my client went to go get a fish dinner with the mother of his child and another young lady named Tiara Jones at JK's Fish at the corner of University and Pryor. And members of the gang spotted them there, stalked that car, drove behind the car, and unleashed bullets upon that car, hitting that poor lady, the driver, Tiara Jones, in the face, killing her, causing the car to crash and spin, breaking bones in my client's body, collapsing his lungs.
Scary, man.
The streets have not cared that Spencer Wright is a liar. Since that time, my client's life has changed in some small ways and some big ways that I think make sense. Shannon Stillwell, since that time, has been careful about his surroundings. He tends to back into parking spots. He tends to run red lights at intersections, not to be a sitting duck for IF gang members or anyone else. He habitually changes residences. And yes, he does habitually rent cars, including a white Audi. He does this, the evidence will show, so no one can associate him with any particular car. None of the IF gang members can know where he is. And yes, when he rents cars, he does tint their windows, so no one can see in. That's the life he leads since 2015. And yes, when he leaves the house late at night, he does conceal his identity. It was during COVID, but he does wear a mask. That's been Shannon Stillwell's life since 2015. And I'm going to ask that you keep that into account as you consider the evidence as it's presented. Now, 7 years later, March 14, 2022, remember, Shannon has been publicly accused, but no one has ever taken that case to court. No one has ever even tried to actually prove the case. They just accused the case. And Shannon has remained a wanted man. Not by the police, but by someone scary. On March 14, 2022,
Oh, here we go. That's what we just went over.
Marvius Nichols, Nikion Garlington, and Miles Farley were planning on going to the music studio to work on music. Still chasing it. The evidence will show that Mr. Garlington was a passenger in Mr. Stillwell's and Shannon's rented white Audi with tinted windows, and Mr. Nichols was with Mr. Farley in Mr. Nichols' white Ford Fusion. The evidence, and you'll see, in this case, you'll see there's several different surveillance videos that you'll see in this case. The first being the BP footage. That's from the BP at the corner of Fulton Street and Windsor Street in Atlanta. And you'll see the video. And you'll see Mr. Stillwell. No, we will never deny that he was at the BP. We will never deny that. We'll never deny that he was in a rented white Audi. And you'll see Mr. Stillwell pull up on that camera and back into a parking spot right in front of the BP. And you will see Mr. Nichols, shortly thereafter, in his white Ford Fusion, pull up at the gas tank so he can purchase gas to get to the studio. You'll see footage from inside of the store. That's Mr. Nichols. You'll find out that that's Mr. Nichols purchasing an item, and that's Mr. Stillwell, my client, wearing a Pink Floyd hoodie with a pink wool cap on. And you'll be able to observe them on video, and you'll see Miles Farley, a third person in their group, a shorter individual, come in, and you'll see them playing around and pushing each other in a playful manner as friends do. I'm going to ask you
No, Judge Glanville's
to
not
observe
bad.
them on a video and ask yourself, does that appear to be men on a mission? Or does it appear to be friends just planning on going to the studio? The video will reveal that at some point, a gentleman by the name of Shamal Drinks pulls up in a red car at another, in fact, I believe that's a picture of it right there at that gas pump, and he enters the store. You'll be able to see the video of him entering the store from the parking lot, and you'll be able to see him inside the store. You'll see that he gets into some sort of argument or altercation, not an altercation, an argument. It appears with the clerk, and he leaves the store, and he gets in his car. There will be no interaction whatsoever between Mr. Drinks and my client, Mr. Drinks and Mr. Farley, Mr. Drinks and Mr. Nichols, Mr. Drinks and Mr. Garlington. There'll be no interaction at all.
None.
And you will see Mr. Drinks exit that parking lot and take a right on Windsor Street. And then you will see Mr. Stillwell exit that parking lot and take a right on Windsor Street. And then you'll see Mr. Nichols exit the parking lot and take a right on Windsor Street. And that's where the FedEx surveillance footage will take over. And you'll be able to watch the FedEx footage on Windsor Street, which will show these cars drive up and end up at a red light. You will see my client's car, white Audi, run a red light. You will see Mr. Nichols follow my client's car and run a red light. Eventually, cars come in to replace him, and traffic flow continues and continues for several minutes. And eventually, a man who's just happened to be going the other way looks into Mr. Drinks' car, which is still sitting there, and notices that Mr. Drinks has been shot. What you will not see on this video is any indication at all that this shooting occurred while my client's car was beside Mr. Drinks. You will not see any muzzle flash, you will not see any commotion, you will not see any fight, you will not see anything at all that suggests that that's when the shooting occurred. So, this March 14, 2022 case, what I anticipate is you will not hear any eyewitnesses say that Shannon Stillwell, and let's be clear, the state is accusing Shannon Stillwell. I mentioned that there's 4 people in this party. They are accusing Shannon Stillwell of shooting Mr. Drinks.
They can't prove
Out of
it.
that white Audi. The state will not present to you any witnesses that saw this occur. The state will not present to you any forensic evidence that proves that this occurred. The surveillance I submit to you, and you'll be able to see it and judge for yourself, points to the exact opposite. That the shots did not come from Mr. Stillwell's car, nor did, and I'm not suggesting they came from Mr. Nichols either, came from neither car. So why was Shannon Stillwell arrested? Well, they had video of Shannon at the BP. Okay, that's fine, we don't deny that, never will. They made certain assumptions about what would be on that FedEx video that you will be able to look at and determine what it shows and what it doesn't show. And I'm sure they assumed that it would show some shooting, but it doesn't. And finally, they made assumptions about Shannon Stillwell. Remember what the state said in opening about how Detective Hogan had his case, and he had people on a video at the BP, which is near where the shooting occurred, but not where the shooting occurred. He had people on his video, and then he talked to another detective, Viverito, and Viverito said, "Oh, that's Shannon Stillwell. That's Shannon Stillwell." oh, that's for Marcus Nichols. And they just ran with it. Yeah. Shannon Stillwell was at the DP that night. He didn't shoot Shamal drinks. None of his friends shot Shamal drinks. They went to the studio. Since these warrants were taken out for Shannon Stillwell, and I'll tell you the warrants were taken out and Shannon Stillwell was arrested in that same white Audi on March 17, 2022, 3 days later. Since those warrants have been taken out, some other information has come forward. First, I'm going to ask you, and you will, as evidence, I'm going to ask that you consider the rental agreement for the white Audi.
Don't say little
learn
bumpers.
that on March 16, two
Oh my
days
gosh.
after this alleged shooting, when every other person who has a guilty conscience, anyone who has a guilty conscience, is trying to get out of the rental car, Shannon extended his
Salute.
lease.
Salute, Darren. Appreciate you,
I'm going to
man.
ask you to consider and really think about that. Extending a lease of a car that you supposedly just killed someone. Are those the actions of someone who's guilty of that crime? You're going to hear about the wiretap on Demekion Garlington's phone. Remember, Demekion Garlington was in Mr. Stillwell's car. And the state hinted at it a little bit. They were talking about Jaden Myrick and people wanting to attack a man named Lucci. And based on these concerns in the jail, the state applied for it, and you'll learn what a wiretap is. They applied for a wiretap and received a wiretap for Demekion Garlington's phone. The phone of the person who was with Shannon Stillwell on March 14, 2022. And you'll learn what a wiretap is and how a wiretap really consists of law enforcement sitting and listening in on all your phone calls, incoming and outgoing, and recording all the relevant and pertinent phone calls and conversations that occurred.
And all the irrelevant ones, too.
And this wiretap on Demekion Garlington's phone began on March 10th, but certainly well before March 14th, the date of the Shamal drink shoot. So it was in place that night. Who knows about the wiretap? You'll learn that too. Do you think the government tells you that your phone is being wiretapped? Of course they don't. It's secret. No one knows. That's the point. And you'll learn about who Demekion Garlington is and what type of guy he is. I would submit, if you have a secret, you wouldn't want to tell Demekion Garlington. You'll hear him on the wiretap, drunk, high, talking about everything under the sun, pills, weed, guns, girls, robberies, all stuff that he's involved in, completely against his interests to discuss, but he doesn't know he's being listened to. But one thing that's interesting, of all the things that this loudmouth talks about, all the crimes, and the state said they bragged about this stuff. State said Demekion Garlington was bragging about this stuff. All the things they brag about, no, it never comes up. Shooting anyone on March 14, 2022. All the crimes he discusses, that never comes up. Finally, and most importantly, the science about this March 14, 2022 case. We're going to learn about gunshot residue. Gunshot residue testing that tests for microscopic particles that contain a combination of lead, barium, and antimony. Particles that come from the explosion of a gun and the gunshot primer that causes it. Synonymous with a firearm that has been fired. Who does gunshot residue testing? Georgia Bureau of Investigation, APD, all sorts of agencies to build cases against defendants. You'll learn how gunshot residue is collected. How you take a surface or a body part or an object, and you take these adhesive stubs these adhesive stubs, these official gunshot residue kits, and you dab the surface of an item as much as you want. You can use multiple stubs. And then you take these stubs and you place them under an electron microscope. And a scientist can look under this microscope and see if there's any particles of gunshot residue that are on said item. You'll hear that Shannon Stillwell was arrested on March 17th in that same white Audi that he was in on the 14th. And you'll hear that the crime scene technicians, in this case, made a specific decision to pick the best place on a car to test for gunshot residue. When the gun is fired, the gunshot residue would plume upwards. And so they take the best part of the car, the headliner. And for all of you that don't know what the headliner is, that's the cloth top of the car, as pictured right there. You'll hear about Alexander Coven.
Y'all leave Glanville alone, man.
Scientist,
Dang.
a man in search of the truth. A man who works for GBI, not for me, not for Shannon Stillwell. And you'll hear how that headliner that was collected from that white Audi on March 17th was brought to Alexander Coven at the Georgia Bureau of Investigation. And you'll hear he's an expert in gunshot residue collection and analysis and detection. And you'll hear how Mr. Coven, as he was trained, took that gunshot residue kit, took those adhesive tabs, and dabbed that headliner again and again and again and again and again and again. Dozens
And what did
of
he
times.
find?
And then he wanted to make sure what he did was sufficient. So he took a second tab, adhesive tab, a fresh one, and continued to dab that headliner again and again and again and again and again to pick up any particles that would be on the headliner from that white Audi.
Mm-hmm.
And he took those tabs, those adhesive tabs, and he put them under his microscope that he uses when he's building cases for the state. And he looked at those tabs under that microscope for any particle of gunshot residue, any at all. Looking for 15, 10, 5, 3, 1, whatever he could see. And you'll hear that on June 3rd, 2022,
Guess what he found?
77 days after the state, after Detective Hogan, Investigator Viverito, and the state made their decision that Shannon Jackson fired a gun, Shannon Stillwell fired a gun from that white Audi. 77 days after they made that decision, you'll hear that scientist Coven released his report. And on that headliner, there was not a single, zero gunshot residue to be found.
Right, and so what we have ultimately is that there is no evidence, none.
Mr. Adams called it.
That's the science.
None.
Ladies and gentlemen, regarding the March 14, 2022 case, the state has made 5 charges, 5 different counts against Shannon Stillwell, my client. First is count 49 on this indictment. It is murder, alleging that he shot out of the white Audi, his shot Shamal Drinks. The science belies those accusations.
Excellent.
I'm going to ask you to find Shannon Stillwell not guilty of that count. Now, count 50 and 51 deal with violations of the Criminal Street Gang Act, Gang Activity Act, and they are essentially charges that say that Mr. Stillwell committed murder to further the interests of YSL, and he committed murder on behalf of YSL for the purposes of increasing his standing within the gang. Y'all are smart people. Obviously, I don't need to say it, but it'll make me feel better if I say it. If he's not guilty of count 49, murder, he cannot be guilty of count 50, and he cannot be guilty of count 51. Counts 52 and 54 similarly charge Shannon Stillwell with possession of a firearm by a convicted felon on March 14th of 2022 on the belief that he used a firearm to kill Shamal Drinks. If the state does not prove that case beyond a reasonable doubt, he cannot be found guilty of count 52. And in count 54, charges Shannon Stillwell with possession of a firearm during the commission of a felony, that felony being murder. Obviously, if he didn't commit the murder, then he cannot be in possession of a firearm during the commission of said felony. In conclusion, my client has been charged with 2 separate murders. He's been wrongfully accused of 2 separate murders, and we plead absolutely not guilty. He's been charged with conspiracy to violate the RICO Act. And while he has sold marijuana in the past, those were his decisions for his benefit and had nothing to do with YSL or anyone else involved in this case. He's pled guilty to those charges. He's done his time. That makes him an ex-drug dealer. It doesn't make him a conspirator. It doesn't make him guilty of violating any RICO acts. The ground rules. Shannon Stillwell is presumed innocent. The state bears the burden of proof, and the standard of proof is beyond a reasonable doubt. I believe in this case, if you focus on where the state's evidence comes from, you will find that primarily it comes from the stories of men wearing blue. I'm going to ask you to focus on things like science instead of stories. Compare the credibility of a scientist like GBI scientist Cole, who followed all the rules and determined there was absolutely 0 gunshot residue in that outfit. Compare that to what the state presents. Spencer Wright, who said his name was Nicholas Robinson, who lied, get out of jail. Spencer Wright duped Detective Thorpe on October 19th of 2015, and that is
what's that guy's nickname?
Detective Thorpe. I am going to do my best to make sure
Y'all remember his nickname?
out in this case. Make sure that no one wearing blue will be able to dupe anyone during this trial. My client, Shannon Stillwell, is not guilty. Thank you very much.
There it is, man. Max Sharp with the opening statements. And I'm so glad Sean said this. And this is why I titled the video this way. What did my guy, Sean P, say? Bro, rewatching this proves opening statements were on point by the defense. Absolutely. And that's why I titled this, if this is going to be a closing statements preview, because everything Max is saying, he was right. We've seen it throughout this trial. No GSR. Can't prove that Shannon was the one that killed Drinks or even shot at him. Not to mention the misconduct throughout the trial by this one and this one here. So it'll be interesting to see on Monday how things go. Thank you to someone who mentioned it in the chat about closing statements on this coming week. They're going to get a couple hours each. So we'll see what happens on Monday and Tuesday. And I'm going to keep you guys updated as well. This is going to be an early end to the stream. Thank you to everybody who liked the video and everyone who super chatted. I appreciate y'all supporting. We just hit 80,000 and we're on the road. We're on the road to 100, but we'll keep the milestones a little bit low for now. Either way, thank y'all for the support. If you're open to and want to hear some amazing music from some of the independent artists in this community, make sure you tune into the Song of the Night live show tonight, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. It's going to be a great time. We're going to hear a lot of great music, and you guys will get an opportunity to vote and decide which one of your songs tonight is your favorite. So looking forward to seeing y'all there. Thank you again to everybody who supported and showed love. I hope y'all have a great rest of your day, and I will see y'all live again tonight, and then of course on Monday for the Music Morning Show. You know what to do. Keep growing, keep pushing, keep it classy. We gone. Peace.